Willow Creek was a town where nothing happened. It was a place where time seemed to stand still, where the hustle and bustle of the outside world felt like a distant memory. The town was a sanctuary for those seeking peace and quiet, a refuge from the chaos of modern life. Rows of pristine houses lined the streets, each with a manicured lawn. The houses were almost identical, each one a mirror image of the next, creating a sense of uniformity and order. The lawns were always perfectly trimmed, the gardens meticulously maintained, a testament to the pride the residents took in their homes. The air was filled with the scent of freshly cut grass and the sound of children laughing in the distance. The park was a hub of activity, a place where families gathered to enjoy the simple pleasures of life. The laughter of children was a constant backdrop, a reminder of the innocence and joy that permeated the town. It was the perfect picture of suburban bliss. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood, families would gather in the park, enjoying the last moments of daylight. The sense of community was strong, with neighbors greeting each other warmly, sharing stories and laughter. Jake Harris, a writer, found solace in the town's tranquility. He had moved to Willow Creek seeking inspiration, hoping to escape the noise and distractions of the city. The quiet streets and serene atmosphere provided the perfect backdrop for his creative endeavors. He moved here seeking inspiration, hoping to escape the noise of the city. The decision to leave behind the chaos of urban life was not an easy one, but Jake knew it was necessary for his work. The move was a fresh start, a chance to find his muse in the tranquility of Willow Creek. He found it in the form of Emily Carter, a beautiful and enigmatic woman who frequented the local coffee shop. Emily was a mystery, her quiet demeanor and piercing gaze captivating Jake from the moment he first saw her. She was a regular at the coffee shop, always sitting in the same corner, lost in her thoughts. Their initial encounters were brief, a nod of acknowledgement, a polite smile, a quick exchange of pleasantries. Yet each interaction left Jake wanting more, eager to uncover the layers of mystery that surrounded Emily. Polite smiles exchanged over steaming mugs of coffee. The coffee shop became their meeting place, a sanctuary where they could escape the world and connect on a deeper level. Each smile, each glance, was a step closer to understanding the enigma that was Emily. Yet, Jake felt a spark, an undeniable attraction to Emily's quiet intensity. There was something about her that drew him in, a magnetic pull that he couldn't resist. Her eyes held secrets, her smile hinted at stories untold, and Jake was determined to uncover them. He started writing again, his words flowing freely, inspired by the mystery that was Emily. The writer's block that had plagued him for months seemed to vanish, replaced by a torrent of creativity. Emily became his muse, her presence igniting a fire within him that he hadn't felt in years. He saw her as his muse, a beacon of creativity in the mundane. Her thoughtful expressions, her quiet grace, everything about her fueled his imagination. She was the spark that reignited his passion for writing, the inspiration he had been searching for. He was smitten, unaware of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of her seemingly calm demeanor. Emily's exterior was a facade, hiding a past filled with secrets and pain. Jake was drawn to her light, but he was blind to the shadows that followed her. As he delved deeper into his writing, he began to uncover hints of the darkness that lay beneath, but he was too captivated by her to see the full picture. Their first date was at a quaint Italian restaurant. The ambiance was perfect, with soft music playing in the background and the warm glow of candlelight casting a romantic spell over the evening. The air was filled with the rich aroma of Italian cuisine, making the moment even more enchanting. Jake, with his boyish charm, managed to elicit a rare smile from Emily. It was a smile that lit up her face, making her eyes sparkle with a light he had never seen before. They laughed and talked, sharing stories and dreams, finding common ground in their love for literature and art. He found her intriguing, her silences speaking volumes. Emily had a way of listening that made Jake feel like the most important person in the room. Her eyes would lock onto his, and he could sense her genuine interest in every word he said. It was as if she was absorbing every detail, every nuance of his stories. He shared his dreams of becoming a successful writer, his words tumbling out in a nervous rush. He spoke of the novels he wanted to write, the characters he had created in his mind, and the worlds he wished to bring to life. Emily listened with rapt attention, her eyes never leaving his face, her expression one of admiration and encouragement. Emily listened intently, her gaze never leaving his face. He felt seen, understood. For the first time in his life, Jake felt like someone truly believed in his dreams. Emily's unwavering support and belief in him gave him the confidence to pursue his passion with renewed vigor. He didn't notice the intensity of her stare, the way her eyes followed his every move. There was a depth to her gaze that he couldn't quite decipher, a mix of admiration and something else, something darker. But in his infatuation, he overlooked these signs, focusing only on the positive. As weeks turned into months, Jake found himself drawn deeper into Emily's world. They spent countless hours together, exploring the city, visiting art galleries, and attending literary events. Each moment they shared brought them closer, and Jake felt like he was living in a dream. He met her family, friends, and colleagues, each encounter solidifying his image of her as the perfect woman. Her family welcomed him with open arms, her friends admired his passion for writing, and her colleagues respected his dedication. Jake felt like he had found his place in Emily's world, and he couldn't imagine his life without her. He wrote about her constantly, his stories filled with her beauty, her grace, and her mysterious aura. Emily became his muse, inspiring him to write with a fervor he had never known before. His notebooks were filled with poems and stories dedicated to her, each one a testament to his growing obsession. He was oblivious to the subtle changes in her behavior, the possessive glint in her eyes, the way she would flinch if he mentioned other women. Emily's demeanor began to shift, her once supportive nature giving way to a more controlling and possessive attitude. But Jake, blinded by his love for her, failed to see these red flags. He was blinded by his own infatuation. Jake's world revolved around Emily, and he couldn't see beyond the illusion he had created. His friends tried to warn him, but he dismissed their concerns, convinced that they didn't understand the depth of his love for her. Little did he know, the seed of obsession had been planted, and it was only a matter of time before it would consume him completely. The first sign of trouble appeared as a bouquet of black roses delivered to Jake's doorstep. The roses, with their dark, velvety petals slightly wilted, seemed to carry an ominous message. Jake stared at them, a sense of unease creeping into his mind. He couldn't shake off the feeling that this was more than just a random act. No card, no sender's name, just the stark, unsettling presence of the flowers. It was as if the sender wanted to remain anonymous, to keep Jake guessing and on edge. The absence of a note made the gesture even more disturbing, leaving Jake to wonder about the intentions behind it. Just a chilling reminder of Emily's presence. The black roses were a symbol, a dark echo of their past relationship. Jake's mind raced back to the times they had shared, the good and the bad, and he couldn't help but feel a shiver run down his spine. Emily had always had a flair for the dramatic, But this was something else entirely. He brushed it off as a harmless prank, his mind refusing to acknowledge the possibility of Emily being involved. But the gifts continued. Each new delivery chipped away at his sense of security. He tried to convince himself that it was just a coincidence, that someone was playing a joke on him, but deep down, he knew better. First, a handwritten note, the words filled with longing and despair. The note spoke of lost love and unfulfilled promises, of a heart that couldn't let go. Jake's hands trembled as he read the words, the familiar handwriting bringing back a flood of memories. It was unmistakably Emily's. Then, a framed photograph of him, taken outside his house, the angle suggesting it was taken from the bushes across the street. The photograph was a stark reminder that someone was watching him, that his every move was being monitored. The thought of being spied on sent a chill down his spine. Fear began to creep into Jake's heart, a cold dread that he couldn't shake off. He started to look over his shoulder, his paranoia growing with each passing day. The once familiar streets now seemed filled with shadows and unseen threats. He couldn't escape the feeling that he was being watched. He tried to distance himself from Emily, his calls going unanswered, his texts met with silence. He hoped that by cutting off contact, he could put an end to the unsettling deliveries. But the silence only made things worse, leaving him to wonder what she was planning next. He found her outside his house one day, her eyes red-rimmed, her face streaked with tears. She looked like a ghost of her former self, a shadow of the woman he once knew. The sight of her standing there, so vulnerable and broken, tugged at his heartstrings. She begged him to take her back, her voice a desperate whisper. Her words were filled with sorrow and regret, a plea for forgiveness and a second chance. Jake felt a pang of sympathy, but he knew that he couldn't go back to the way things were. He refused, his voice firm despite the tremor in his heart. He told her that it was over, that they both needed to move on. It was one of the hardest things he had ever done, but he knew it was the right decision. He couldn't let himself be drawn back into the chaos of their past. Her reaction was explosive, a torrent of accusations and threats that left him shaken and terrified. She screamed at him, her words cutting like knives. The anger and pain in her voice were palpable, and Jake felt a surge of fear. He realized that this was far from over, that the whispers had turned to screams, and the nightmare was just beginning. The harassment escalated. Threatening messages appeared on his social media. His mailbox was vandalized. His car tires were slashed. Fear became a constant companion, a shadow that followed him everywhere. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by nightmares of Emily's haunting eyes. He was a prisoner in his own home, too terrified to venture out. Desperate, Jake turned to the authorities. He filed a restraining order against Emily, his hands trembling as he recounted the months of harassment. The police were sympathetic but warned him that without concrete evidence, they could do little to help. He felt a surge of despair, the weight of his situation crushing him. He was alone, trapped in a nightmare of his own making.